Good morning, everybody. Jake, I can hear the echo, I think, on your computer. Good morning, though, everybody. Happy Tuesday, right? We had Monday Night Football. We were up way too late, an hour-long post-game show. It was a ton of fun, though, besides the fact that the Broncos lost in overtime, 19-16 to the Chargers. DMac and I had a wonderful conversation. James popped in. Make sure you check that out if you want the immediate afterthought and the immediate anger that came with watching that game last night, but we've calmed down a little bit. Let's discuss, guys. So how are we feeling? It's been 12 hours since we were last on the air. Clint in the comments says, I still want to fire everyone. Robert says this should be good. So they're looking forward to what we got to say. DMac, how are you?
Well, good. I rewatched the game today, and, it was actually worse than I remembered.
Oh, yeah.
Because well, everybody remembers it went well in the beginning, right? And then you sort of as it's happening, you're sort of kind of lost in the moment. But when you go back and look at it, and then you've seen some other film breakdowns today, it was actually worse for Russell Wilson specifically. Good for the defense, but then again, the defense, with Damari Mathis and all those penalties, I mean, we are record-setting on the bad angle of things. And if you go back and watch the commentary of Troy Aikman, he just eviscerates Russ. Yeah. Then it all leads up to, the obvious, weird decisions, throwing a ball on 3rd and 1 when you can just run for first down. And just the absolute incompetence of the special teams at the end. Then you got to frame it with everything else, like the Melvin Gordon comments. And there was a reporter, she did a great job from NFL Network, and she spent like 2 minutes with Melvin Gordon talking about and she put one question after another to him. Mm-hmm. And he's obviously needs to go. I mean, that's a no-brainer. He needs to be gone one way or the other. And then, you have other questions about what you do and where the season's actually going. And to hear Russ, I mean, he did not give us the let's ride. Thank God he didn't give us that. But then again, it didn't come across like really addressing what's going on. So upon further reflection, although I'm more calmed down, it's not like the news got any better this morning.
No, I agree. We're going to talk about Melvin Gordon here in a little bit too. A lot to dive into with the running back. But Jake, how are you? We didn't get to hear your thoughts, so I'm curious.
Well, I thought Gorgiev proved he's a number one goaltender last night. A flurry of saves, super wild.
Let's go, Avs.
Night.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Thank goodness for the Avs.
Yeah, you can turn a happy eye to the Avs because I think that brings a smile to all of our faces. But, man, that was rough last night, guys. I was with you on the postgame show the whole way through, and you're bang on. I would go a little bit further than you guys. You're talking about firing Hackett, firing out, and maybe promoting Evero. This goes to George Payton. Like, this team is poorly built. There is not enough depth on this team for them to succeed. Yes, the injuries are affecting them, but that comes back to the depth issue. So I have some fundamental problems with the way this Denver Broncos team is built. I don't think they're a good enough football team, no matter what the scheme is. Their problems are not black and white. Their problems are across the board, and we saw them in every facet of the game last night, except for their marvelous defense.
You know what? It's interesting that you bring up George Payton because you're right. We haven't heard that name be tossed around a whole lot when it comes to who needs to leave in the Broncos organization, DMac.
He's got some tough questions to answer. If you're sitting across from Greg Penner today and you're trying to explain yourself to him, what do you say? I mean, there was even, by the way, very low key, and I didn't actually catch it at the time, but you realize when they were leading 10-0, they switched out Calvin Anderson for Cam Fleming and put Billy Turner at right tackle. You're winning. Things are going well. Mm-hmm. But now we got to play Billy Turner now, and we're going to take Cam Fleming and put him out to left tackle and take Calvin Anderson out. And they were winning at this time. Why did you do that? Just for the benefit of Billy Turner? And I know the excuse was, well, we wanted to get Billy reps. Well, so Cam Fleming, Calvin Anderson's that bad? This, and then they just left him in there. Like, that's just the way they went the rest of the way. Who does that? What is going on there? If you want to put, I got to think about this for a second because it's kind of crazy. If you want to get reps with Billy Turner, shouldn't he just be rotating with whoever is playing right tackle? whether that's Calvin Anderson or Cam Fleming, why don't you just start Calvin Anderson at right tackle and you can rotate him with Billy Turner instead of flip-flopping them? So, I mean, that's one smaller thing, but that's another thing. And think of all the things there are, guys. George Paton, let's go through it, right? Gave away the farm for Russell Wilson. I know we're going to have Mike Evans here. He's going to get a I told you so moment here shortly. You committed big money to him. You gave away the farm for him. You brought back Melvin Gordon, who you got to get rid of. You brought in Billy Turner to do whatever. And you brought in Nathaniel Hackett and all of his crew. Those are tough questions, guys, to answer.
Going back to your Cam Fleming thing, sorry, Jake, real quick. My dad actually texted me last week during the game, and he was like, I'm over the preseason games. When are we going to get to the regular season? And I was like, I feel that way because why are we trying to give Billy Turner the reps? Listen, he should be able to go in there. He is in the NFL. He should be able to just go in the game and be the starter if he needs to be. There's no getting in the reps. You do that during practice. Jake, go ahead. I'm sorry.
There's a bunch of befuddling decisions, to be honest. It's not just flipping around the offensive line. It's punting when they shouldn't be punting. It's why are you running out of the shotgun every time you're on 3rd and short, 4th and short, stuff like that we've seen over and over again. I come back to this. Greg Dulcich was awesome on his first 2 targets. He made a great catch, then made another one in busted coverage, takes it to the house. Why is he only seeing 1 target the rest of the game? And I know he's a rookie, but like, get him the ball. He obviously is a difference maker, and it's this stuff. It's what goes from 10 of 10 for Russ, the first 10 passes of the game, to 5 of 18, and in the second half, the Broncos have -9 passing yards net. Like it just doesn't make any sense why you would mess with the thing that was working. I guess maybe they had a script at the start of the game. DMac might know better than me, and then it's off script. But that even if they're going from on script to off script, that disappoints me more because it's like, can these guys not coach in the middle of a game? Can these guys not play call in the middle of a game? And maybe Hackett can't play call in the middle of a game because it's really hard to do play calls while being the head coach.
Well, that's what's funny about that is even if they had a script in the first quarter, it was playground. It wasn't working. It was just that you were running around trying to make something happen. And the Dulcich touchdown was completely freak luck because they had a busted coverage. The Chargers made a mistake. It wasn't some sort of brilliant play. To your point about Dulcich, he played in 71% of the snaps. So it's not like he wasn't out there. So it's a fair point to say, well, the one thing that worked, why didn't you just figure that out a little bit more? And I don't have an answer. By the way, Eric Saubert, he got the Albert Okwuegbunam treatment. He didn't play at all, really, like 1 snap or something like that. So you had a guy out there. It's a great point. You had a guy out there in Dulcich that worked originally. He stayed out there. And you just, what? You don't use him anymore.
And to your point, DMac, real quick, there was a 3rd and short, I think, where there was a play designed for Dulcich, and he was wide open in front of Russ, and Russ got sacked.
Yeah,
and that's one of the plays Russ is getting destroyed on, and you know, keep going.
There's just so many why moments that have continued to happen. And another big one is Melvin Gordon. And he spoke to an NFL Network reporter, like DMac said, for 2 minutes. We've got the clip. Oh, there's the pouty face. And also he went on and we did some investigative reporting here at the Fan, and we went through Melvin Gordon's likes, and he liked a lot of things about too soon to propose a trade for Melvin Gordon for Cam Akers. Coaching staff seems about done with Melvin Gordon. He also liked some ones that weren't quite so nice to him. So it's interesting, Melvin Gordon searching his name in Twitter after the game last night and liking those things because he wasn't tagged in any of those. I would love to get both of your opinion on the breaking point of Melvin Gordon. And Jake, we'll go with you first.
He's obviously done. Like, he's checked out. He's out of here. You know, there's this concept from us millennials, Rachel, and I'm not sure if DMac's familiar with it or not. It's called quiet quitting. It's when you continue to show up to your job. You don't put in any effort. You have a terrible attitude because you are actively trying to get fired, like George Costanza in that one episode of Seinfeld, because it would be great to get the severance. It would be great to get unemployment. So quiet quitting is what Melvin Gordon is doing. He is trying to get out of here without actually doing something that can get him fired to get out of there, like something that's just, okay, you got to get gone. So it is hilarious. I also love the pettiness. I'm always here for pettiness. It's terrible for the Broncos in this situation, but go off, Melvin. Go off.
Yeah, I mean, Melvin Gordon is a running back in his 30s. That's a rare breed. It just doesn't happen all that often in the NFL. He's getting a couple of $1 million. I'd quiet quit too, except that the problem for Melvin, I suppose, in this scenario is Jerry Jeudy's going over to him, complaining about things left or right, and he's going to be guilty by association. You may want to stay away if you're going to quiet quit from Jerry Jeudy. But, that's just not a guy. Listen, man, we've all been in an office or in a workplace where you work with somebody who doesn't want to be there anymore. Mm-hmm. And they don't want to pull the trigger themselves. They're looking for that moment to perhaps collect unemployment or to protect their reputation. But that person is a drag to be around. We've all been through it, all of us. So you need to move on from people like that. It's better for everybody if you move on from people like that. And they need to do that with Melvin Gordon today. Today, they need to move on. And guys, I said I would have moved on for him before the Colts game. I didn't buy into the, we don't have a choice thing. I definitely thought we had a choice. You might not have liked the choice, but you had one. And so you've got a guy who's disgruntled. You don't trust anyway. And what's the point? And by the way, that is on George Paton. All these personality characteristics and the conflict that was inevitably going to happen with another running back sort of competition, whether you think there was one or not. Melvin Gordon thought there was one, mm-hmm. and that's all that really matters. So no, that is something that has to happen today. You need to move on from Melvin Gordon today. If you can get something from Melvin Gordon, all the better. I mean, or just cut him, and you got to start seriously looking at anybody else on this team that is also equally, bad for the locker room. Because one of the things that's going to happen here, I'm telling you guys, is they are going to splinter in terms of what's going on. So if you have some negative energy in there, negative vibes, you've got to try to get rid of them and get people on the same page. You also have to do, symbolically, you have to do something to send a message to Russell Wilson. And the first thing you can do to send a message to Russell Wilson and the rest of his team is to take away these privileges that were bestowed on Russell Wilson in the first place. And we've got to become more inside rather than outside. So, yeah, I mean, even if it's just symbolic, you need to take away the parking places and access to the building for all of his peeps. If he wants to meet with his peeps, he can do so like everybody else outside the building. And they all do, by the way. All these guys have their own trainers and body people and all that sort of stuff. But nobody has the access to the facility like Russell Wilson's people do. You got to end that too, because it says we're in this together, in my opinion.
Okay, well, there's a video going around that our very own Matt Smith clipped from the broadcast last night, too, of Russell Wilson trying to get high fives. So we're going to play that, and we're also going to bring in our very own Mike Evans to discuss. You guys, this is just, crazy to me. Jake, whenever you want to play it, roll the clip of the high fives. It's interesting because he gets some high fives, but then other people, Quinn Miners especially, really kind of catches me off guard where he just kind of almost shoulders him. It's just interesting, the dynamic that we're watching when it comes to Russell Wilson and this team. And I'm curious to hear other people's thoughts on this as well. So DMac, we'll go with you as we wait for Mike Evans. We'll bring him in without this video playing.
Well,
there he is. There he is, our very own Mike Evans. Hello, good morning.
Hello, guys.
Oh, cheers. I don't have anything left in my
I'm just showing Mike our Syracuse bond as I see the hat that Mike is wearing.
Practice makes perfect, guys. Practice makes perfect.
Okay, Mike, hit me with what you think on the high fives. I'm curious on your thoughts, too, on there was no Let's Ride, which was great last night, but I'm curious.
Yeah, look, all this stuff with Russ, we signed up for it. We understood. We knew the corniness. We knew this stuff was coming. We were forewarned by all the people in Seattle. And you know what? We were fine with it. He'll become our corny, oddball quarterback, and that's fine as long as he's playing well. If he's playing well, he can tell people to call, pass, or run on the defense. He can meet people and give them high fives as they're coming in off the field. Play well, and you can do whatever you want. It's like the great line in Bull Durham when Crash Davis is talking to Nuke Lelouch and he's holding up one of his shower tongs and he says, you know what? Win 20 games in the show and everyone will think you're colorful. Until you do that, you're a slob. And that is Russell Wilson right now. He's a slob. Okay? Go out, start playing better, and all this hokey, corny stuff is fine. Until you start playing better, you look tone deaf, and it really looks dumb, and it just adds to the idea that the Broncos are a national joke.
It's cringy, and DMac, I know you have an apology you would like to make, so I'm going to give you the floor.
Well, it's not. Listen.
Go ahead.
All right. I did some
It's
stupid
good for
around.
the soul.
Relax, okay? So to make this work, Michael, I did some stupid around today. I went back and checked a couple of things out. And although I think a deal was implied based on the trade, it definitely wasn't contingent on being done. Not that I could find out when I went back and looked through some things. Okay, so you win this point, Mike, no doubt about it. Because now, clearly, with this hindsight, although it certainly didn't bother me at the time, nor did it bother James Marilat, you have mentioned it, so has Derek Wolfe. You really should have waited. You should have. So you get the I told you so. I'm handing it to you. You can get it because clearly you would not do this deal that you have done with Russ knowing this information. I mean, there's no way you would do that now. In fact, just the opposite. You'd be quickly looking to figure out how to move on.
Well, I accept that. Thank you very much. But now I do agree with you. I agree with you what you're talking about, the idea of taking something away from Russell Wilson. Enough's enough. I get it. You know, you made these promises. You made these agreements. You let him have all the access to the building for all his people. You were going to run the offense that he wanted to run. But you know what? The results suck right now. And it is well within the Broncos' rights. In fact, they should do it. And I'll be bitterly disappointed if they don't do it. They have to go back to him and say, look, dude, deal's changed. Here's the video to prove it. Here are the stats to prove it. And what we may have agreed to at the time, times change. And not only are we doing some of these things differently, restricting use of the building, taking away some of these privileges that you just talked about, DMac, but I would go to him and say, look, we're changing the offense.
Yeah, well,
we're not going to run your offense. We're going to go back to doing the things you did in Seattle. And if you don't like it, too bad. What are you going to do? Demand a trade? Who's going to trade for you? You're stuck here. You're going to start doing things our way.
Mike, I absolutely 1,000% agree with you. So I agree with you. You just can't do that with Nathaniel Hackett. I'm sorry. You can't build one kind of relationship and then turn it on its head because Hackett wouldn't be able to do it anyway. So I do agree with you. All I'm here to say is if you are to do that, which again, I think is the right thing to do, it's got to be somebody besides Hackett. And in my mind, here's my proposal. You let go of Outen, Hackett, and Stoops too, by the way. Sorry, didn't work out. And you bring in Gary Kubiak as an interim head coach and have Clint Kubiak be the offensive coordinator. Why? Because I do believe Gary is still connected. I really think he is. I think he talks to George Payton. I think he's the reason Jerry Rossberg is here based on their relationship in Baltimore. You bring him in as a voice of authority, as an interim coach. He can lay things down with Russ. He can establish a new way to go. And then let's see how things go. Interim. And maybe that means Clint Kubiak steps up the next year. Maybe he doesn't. We'll see how things go. But in order to make that sort of turn, you've got to do something pretty radical. And there's no evidence whatsoever that Nathaniel Hackett's capable of it.
Well, no, because the kind of hard, truthful moves you're talking about here and the really blunt moves and getting up in front of the team and Mark Schlereth this morning was saying back in his day, you would have a team-wide meeting. Everybody would be sitting there. The whole team would be looking at the film. They would bring up the clip of Jerry Jeudy and Melvin Gordon there whispering on the sideline, and they'd call those two up and say, what are you guys talking about there? Care to share?
Well, Hackett,
I love
Hackett, you're right. Hackett, if all of a sudden Hackett started doing that, it would be completely inauthentic. I get you. So what I'm here to tell you is Hackett's not the guy. And whether it's now with Gary Kubiak as an interim or at the end of the season, what I think you got to do is you just got to go all out for Sean Payton.
Oh, well,
you got to go all out for Sean Payton, and you got to make your changes that way, either in season or end of the season. But you're right. Hackett is not the guy. He's got to go, whether it's now or end of the season. He's not the guy. I don't want to live through Vic Fangio, Vance Joseph, Josh McDaniels again, because you know what? You, me, everybody out there in Broncos country, we know the signs. We know what to look for. We know that it's not simply a case of give this guy another year or two and he'll figure it out. No, we know what the signs look like. We know because we've seen them before. We're seeing them again. And what's the point in waiting? Make the move now, because if it's not going to work with Nathaniel Hackett and Russell Wilson, you can't move on from Russell Wilson. You're tied with Russell Wilson. You know who you can move on from pretty easily? Nathaniel Hackett and the staff.
Mark Schlereth was on the Up and Adams show yesterday morning, and he said that Nathaniel Hackett needed to act like an adult. He needed to be an adult in this situation, and that's exactly how I feel about this. I feel like we have two kids that are trying to make this work by, swapping toys or whatever you want to say it. And Nathaniel Hackett needs to go out there and be the adult and the grown-up and say, Russell, it's not working. I'm sorry. Your family's not coming in anymore. I'm sorry you don't get an office. You're back in there with the locker room. Everyone made fun of me because I was like, he should not have an office. Your quarterback should not have an office unless you're going to give every other man on that roster an office. And everyone made fun of me. Look at it now, though. Look at what is happening there. It's like here's the rest of the team. Here's Russell Wilson. And here's Nathaniel Hackett barely above him. And it's just not working. It's ridiculous, Jake.
It's too late. It's too late.
Well,
Seattle made this monster. Seattle created the monster that is Russell Wilson and the ecosystem around him. Denver enabled this monster from day one. They did not set a standard of what needs to be done to be a Denver Bronco and our deep traditions of football in this city. They did not do that. They did not set any sort of standards. They let this guy come wild free, let him have free reign on anything. DMac, you bring this up all the time. Even Peyton Manning got into shouting matches with his coach over what he should not be doing. Russell Wilson got to do whatever he got to do from day one. Being punitive at this point towards Russell Wilson, I don't know if that actually does the Broncos any good. I think it's too late, because then you're also going to start to get a disconnected and a not wanting to be here, Russell Wilson. And you guys might say, well, he can't go anywhere. Yeah, but you might still lose him and his interest in the team and his willingness to perform. The one thing we have right now with Russ is he clearly cares. He clearly does care. In his roundabout way of traveling all the time, yeah, he cares about other things, but he wants to win, and he's trying to win. The problem is that he's not doing it very well.
But Jake, if you did that, let's say you really called him out and said, we're taking this stuff away. You really think that this guy who, if you're right, and I do agree with you, by the way, I do think he truly cares about winning, cares about doing things the right way. Do you really think that if he felt that way, if you came to him and said, we're changing things up, we're not giving you the office, we're taking away all the access to the building, you think he would pout and cower in the corner and suck his thumb and be a petulant child? I don't think he would. So I think you're on pretty solid ground in actually calling this guy's bluff, because I think he would react the right way.
Hey, Peyton Manning had to adjust when Gary Kubiak came there. It worked before. I don't know why it couldn't work again. And you simply have to go back to what the Seahawks did with Russell Wilson that made him effective in the first place. But you just need an adult in the room. And Nathaniel Hackett, I've never covered a coach in 30 plus years of covering the NFL like him, and maybe that's for a reason.
Here's Mike. I'm interested to get your take, because Jake brought up a great point. Everyone's pointing out Nathaniel Hackett, Justin Naughton, Dwayne Stukes, all of them, but no one's saying George Payton's name. Really, he's not really involved in this conversation. How much is he to blame for this?
Of course. I mean, he made the hire. He made the trade. He absolutely has to share in a lot of the culpability for all of this. So, no, I think you're looking at, and what I think is fascinating here, this is the first big test for the new ownership group. And they have got to have some impressions here about what they see. And they inherited all these people. And they're in a position. They just wrote a check for over, $4.5 billion. You think they're going to worry about having to buy out a coaching staff or buy out a general manager? Of course not. So while I look at Peyton and I like a lot of the things he's done in the draft. Nobody had a problem with the trade for Russell Wilson, but it hasn't worked out. So just like we talked about the idea that you have to be aggressive with the idea that and recognize the signs that it's just not working with Nathaniel Hackett. I look at Peyton as, hey, I think Peyton should be here, but I think he needs to he's going to have to take a hard look at what he's done with this coaching staff and also realize, hey, the more time goes on, guys, the more I look at Nathaniel Hackett, and I really do buy the idea. He was simply brought in with the idea that he was going to be bait for Aaron Rodgers, and that once the deal for Aaron Rodgers didn't go down, you're kind of stuck with Nathaniel Hackett. If that's the case, and I'm more and more believing that was the case, then move on. Hey, the one thing that we've seen, and it kind of surprised me, but since 1994, you're looking at some 19 coaches in the NFL that were fired after 1 year. That surprised me that number was that high, but it is that high. So the idea of moving on from Nathaniel Hackett midway through the year, to DMac's idea, or after the year, my idea, it's certainly not revolutionary.
By the way, and two of those were cut in the middle of the season, one of them being Urban Meyer last year. And by the way, Mike, I totally agree. He was bait for Aaron Rodgers. And guess what? It's time to cut baits.
Yeah, I mean, what is Hackett if not a nepotism baby who's in the NFL that was standing next to a dude who's successful the last few years? And what I will say about George Paton is that it takes real leadership to look at Aaron Rodgers, to look at Russell Wilson, and a football brain that I do not have, that I hope George Paton has, and goes, hey, these guys are on the decline. I don't want him here. I don't want to spend the draft capital. I don't want to invest a contract into these guys. And that's where I struggle with this George Paton thing. It's like, why are you chasing these guys when we're seeing the results this year?
I know I know the answer. Because you're terrified of drafting a young quarterback. It scares the hell out of a lot of general managers, and it scared the hell out of the Broncos. And that's why they didn't draft a quarterback when they had the right opportunity. Now, did they get a great player? Sure. But look what happened yesterday. As great as Pat Surtain is, there's only so much a cornerback can do because he's only – the whole thing is that, he protects half the field. Not really, guys. He protects you against one player. And look what they did to poor Damari Mathis. Look what they did to my boy, to Damari Mathis, to quote The Godfather. What did you do to Sonny? Damari Mathis got picked on relentlessly. 4 PIs for it was a record for Monday Night Football for penalty yards, and it's got to be a Broncos record for PIs in a game. It's got to be.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I'm assuming, but Damari Mathis got targeted so much because of Pat Surtain and how.
Well, that's okay. Great, and Pat Surtain. So you got Pat Surtain. They're just going to target somebody else over and over and over again.
Exactly. But also, I still want to say, and I stand by this, 2 of those PI calls on him, I think were soft, but that's.
So would you rather have 2 Damari Mathises out there?
No, you could. Mike, oh my God, I'm going to lose it. You can get another Pat Surtain the next year. You can get great corners in free agency. Jalen Ramsey plays for the Rams, for crying out loud. He was drafted by the Jaguars. We see Stephon Gilmore, who now doesn't, plays for, we just saw him. Listen, you can get great cornerbacks. The all-pros in the past decade, there were only two all-pros in the last decade, Mike, who were drafted in the first round. Gilmore and Ramsey. That's it. It just happens to be one of those positions you can find guys deeper than the first round. You can. It has happened. And I'm not trying to rip on Patrick Surtain at all. He's obviously wildly talented. But this is the reason why you gave up the farm. To answer your question, Jake, this is why you did it. Because you were afraid of drafting and trying to develop a quarterback.
And that's why. And that to me shows a lack of real leadership and courage. But I want to take you down DMac's little fantasy land sidebar here for a second. The Broncos would have the 7th pick in the draft this year. that is going to Seattle currently, if the Broncos record and everyone else kind of goes here. The 7th pick on the mock I'm looking at has Will Levis, the quarterback from Kentucky, going to it. So you could have drafted that. Or, as DMac said, get a cornerback later. Ringo, that standout corner at Georgia, is supposed to go 8 in this mock. So
hey, look, guys, I'm all for playing the revisionist history, Monday morning quarterbacks thing, but let's not talk about Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers when we were talking about the prospects of trading for those guys as being some huge risk about what you were going to be getting as a player. When we talked about Rodgers and Wilson, both instances, it was with the understanding you get these guys, you are getting one of the elite quarterbacks. In the case of Rodgers, maybe the elite quarterback in the NFL, but certainly one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the NFL for at least 3 or 4 seasons. So let's backpedal off the idea that we were looking at these two guys as being high risk in terms of what they could deliver as a player.
I disagree with you because I knew about Russ and all the things going on around him in Seattle and his teammates disliking him. I knew that. So what did George Payton see on the football field? I don't know. I don't watch the film.
Jake, then you should have gone to Vegas and put down a ton of money saying that the Broncos were going to suck this year.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody thought that the Broncos were going to look how they currently do.
Well,
Brock Hewitt, who I think is a pretty good Russell Wilson expert based on everything he said, you watch, he'll probably have an MVP caliber season for you this year.
Yeah, he said that. Meanwhile, they're in Seattle laughing their ass off.
Right now they are, sure. And it's the play is leading us to say, what were we thinking? Why did we ever do this? What a stupid move. But, come on, let's go back to what we were saying at the time. Right. And at the time, everybody was completely on board with the idea of pursuing Rodgers and or Wilson.
So now here I'm hearing, is it a dip or a decline? Are we all saying it's a decline for Russell Wilson right now, meaning there's not an obvious fix?
Well, let me ask you this before you answer this. Are the Broncos scheming to preserve Russ in the future? And should they stop doing that? Because he's clearly better when they're playing school ground football. But he was told to kind of calm down on the running a little bit during camp. We remember that. So is that part of the dip/decline? And if they let go of that, hey, maybe he's back.
Look, I'm all for the idea that there's a possible decline, a gradual decline. This is a guy who is 2 years removed from throwing for 4,200 yards and 40 touchdowns. Even last year when he came back after busting up his finger, by the end of the season, he was playing again at a high level. So what we're seeing is this is Peyton Manning after that St. Louis Rams game falling off the cliff. I just don't believe that Russell Wilson has fallen off the cliff. But what's going on right now is clearly a terrible offense, a terrible fit, his stubbornness to try to change the way that he's played for the last 10 years. And somebody needs to be the adult in the room and come back and tell Russ, it ain't working. We're going back to doing it the way we used to do it. But I just don't buy the idea that the guy that we've watched as most recently as last year, I just can't reconcile what I watched last night in the last 2 weeks with the guy that I was watching just last year.
Oh my goodness, you guys. I can't believe we're having these conversations, but can it get worse? After the Raiders game, I was like, oh, that's the worst. Oh,
actually, gosh. Rachel, yes, it actually can get worse.
Oh,
You've got a Jets team coming in who is on fire right now and has a tremendous defense. And then you could be humiliated in England. You could be an international And by the way, everybody's going to be at that game. That one. Hey, it was nice to see Sir Lewis in in LA. But you'll have everybody congregating on Wembley for that particular game. Yeah, it can actually get worse. It can. And so I think if Russell's going through any kind of injuries, I know this is going to sound insane. Just like Peyton Manning in 2015, time out, get healthy, rehab a little bit, because at least if you lose, it will be because you don't have Russell Wilson, not because you do have Russell Wilson. And that little breather may be well needed by the entire team going into the bye week. So actually, Rachel, yes, it actually can get worse.
Can it get better? Do any of you have any hope that this offense can find a connection? Because every week I picked the Broncos to win last night. Every week there's that sliver of hope that I'm like, oh, this is going to be the week that everything clicks and it all works out. And, they get a win and we go on and somehow make the playoffs. And then I'm just so disappointed every single week. So can it get better? Do any of you have hope that can actually happen, Mike?
Not unless they change the offense. Not unless they literally pull off all the videos from last year, the last couple of years in Seattle, and say we're going back to that. Russ, you're going back under center. I mean, this is just like the Gary Kubiak, Peyton Manning butting of heads when Gary wanted Peyton to play more under center. I get the idea why Peyton didn't want to play under center. I mean, if ever there's a guy you want standing back and surveying an offense and making decisions and all that, it's Peyton Manning. But Russell Wilson hasn't earned that right. We know he's a different quarterback when he's under center and they're running the ball and it's bootlegs and play action. If they continue to try to force this square peg into a round hole and just keep him back there in the shotgun, this is just going to be, as Justin Simmons talked about after the game, the definition of insanity, doing it over and over again. No, it will not change until this offense changes, which means Wilson has to throw his ego aside and be willing to change, or Nathaniel Hackett has to be the adult in the room and says, sorry, Russ, this is the way it's going to be.
They
go ahead, Jake.
They have as many games this season with multiple touchdowns as they do 0 touchdowns, 1-1. They've scored 1 touchdown in their other 4 games, just 1. And I know DMac likes to make fun of the ATDs. The ATDs, the almost touchdowns, have dried up. Like, there aren't even almost touchdowns to give you hope anymore. Like, we aren't even getting close.
Mm-hmm.
That was a Mike Evans. Mike, I'll give you more credit. That was, and I always am giving you credit on the ATDs. I think it's hysterical. That and Iron Man for Chris Bryant, 2 very great things. So I don't want to steal no false glory here, Jake. Give credit to Mike. What a day for Mike. What a great
bonded,
day for
DMac.
Mike.
Our relationship is really bonded over ATDs. So thank you, Mike, for helping DMac and I's relationship with the ATDs.
Whatever I can do.
All right, Mike. Well, we appreciate you hanging out with us and all your insight. All right, everybody. It's Tuesday, which means it is trivia time. So let's do it. All right. Let me go over here and share my screen. It's still this like Halloween style, which I'm kind of over. So I'm like, okay, maybe it's because I'm just in a bad mood though. Everybody go to Kahoot.it. I saw Troy in the comments say, is it Kahoot time? It is. Kahoot.it. Enter in this game pin 4368543. No,
Rachel,
Jake,
what are you doing? What are you going as for Halloween this year? What's your dress up?
So my niece is born on Halloween. So I actually do not do anything on Halloween. I go trick or treat and spend her birthday with her. So I haven't done anything. She's going to be 7 this year, which is literally insane to me. So I don't do anything on Halloween. What about you?
I'm going as Smokey the Bear. Only you can prevent forest fires, Rachel and DMac. Only you.
Oh, wow. Okay. And
I
DMac,
hang up on my roof, which oversees my front door, and I just throw candy out at the kids down below me.
I love that.
The Smoky Hill high schoolers.
Well, listen, I got a rule. If it's 8 o'clock and you're a teenager, the only thing you want from my house is to steal something. So the door is closed. We don't do anything after 8 o'clock at the old anything before 8 o'clock, and I'll roll my eyes at the teenagers in their non-costumes, but okay. But after 8 o'clock, that's it. No good.
Cut it. Okay, interesting. Kind of sounded like the Grinch DMac, but it's totally fine.
Oh, yeah. It's a get off my front porch moment. No doubt about it.
All right, we're going to give it a few more. If you've never played trivia with us, first of all, thanks for hanging out. It's super fun. You go to Kahoot.it and you enter the game pin 4368543. We're going to give it one more quick second. We'll get to 10 people and then we'll play. I'm not going to, so I feel kind of like the Grinch too when I did this, because some of this, there's, I think, one good question about the Broncos, and then a lot of it's coming off of last night's stats. So we're going to see. We're going to really put everybody to the test. Okay, let's do this.
Let's go.
Let's go. Broncos, week 6. Let's do it. Somebody beat Jake or DMac. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. The Broncos had 151 yards of penalties in Monday's loss to the Chargers. That's the most for the Broncos in one game since
Ooh.
Since 1976, since 1999, since 2010, or since 2020.
Ooh, I actually know this one. That stat pops up. Easy one to start. I love it.
Thank you. Our very own Andrew Mason giving me a little.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's an easy question, but it just so happens I know that was discussed.
Yep. 1976. We actually showed the number during the show today, so if you paid attention, thank you so much.
Gerald Ford was the president of the United States the last time the Broncos.
Who was the vice president?
Was it Nixon?
No, Gerald. How would Nixon
Oh,
be
Ford
the
was
vice
after
president?
Nixon.
Gerald
Yeah.
Ford.
Was it Bush?
No.
Carter? I don't know.
Justin Herbert's 57 passes versus Denver were the most in a winning effort without a passing touchdown. True or false?
Boom.
True.
Love it.
False.
Killing it today.
Mondale?
Mondale was a Democrat.
Dude, it was 30 years before I was born. I don't know.
True. I was like,
all
we
right.
need to get off
Wait a
the
second.
history.
Okay,
So just for
19.
clarification, you know everything since you were born. Like the year you were born and everything after, you know everything from there on.
No, I don't know Clinton's vice president.
Hey, we had a guy called John JFK. He was a president. He was assassinated. We also had a guy named Lincoln. He met a similar fate. But hey, don't worry about it. It happened before you were born.
I knew of him as a theater lover.
Moving on. The Broncos defense averages the fastest time to sack in the NFL. True or false?
Oh, I don't know this one. I'll take a guess. That feels like a weird one to be false. That seems like a lot of work to just say false on that one.
That is indeed true.
Wow.
They have the fastest. They're the only defense that has the average under 4 seconds. So.
Yeah, Baron Browning, by the way, becoming quickly an NFL superstar. And on low-key, John Cooper also doing great.
So fun. Derek G has the highest answer streak of 3. And nice. Wilson's season-long QBR to date of 35.8 places him blank among 32 eligible QBs.
Wow.
Oh, hey, Tim. Thanks for hanging out with us today. We are also bummed about all things Broncos. But luckily, the Avs and the Nuggets start up tomorrow, everybody. So stay tuned. We're going to have a lot of fun shows. Did I get anybody with this one?
Got me.
25th among 32 eligible QBs.
Look how many people said worst. 31, including me. We just assumed it was the worst.
Derek G's coming in hot on Jake, though. I like it. Derek, put in the comments how you're feeling right now. Would love to hear. True or false? The Broncos had -9 passing yards after halftime, everybody. Oh, my gosh. Just my reaction alone should let you know.
That is unbelievable.
Y'all know Geno Smith is a free agent after the year.
Oh, my God. Shut up. My goodness. What are
True.
we
Also, can we believe Geno Smith? Truthfully, I can't.
No. I was asked by Brock Heward, what's the bigger surprise, Geno Smith playing well or Russell Wilson playing poorly? And I said Geno, because like Jake pointed out, there was evidence that Russ wasn't playing that well.
True.
There was no evidence Geno could play well.
Yep. Derek saying whoop whoop. Love it. True or false? The Broncos have the worst offense and NFL best defense.
True. Trick question.
False?
Good question. Trick question, though.
First time joining trivia, Derek. Thanks for hanging with us. We do this every single Tuesday, so come hang out. We have a lot of people that are here every single month or every single week, so we love seeing repeats. False. They are not the best defense right now. I believe they're coming in 3rd.
Oh, I thought it was 4th.
Yeah.
But that was a sneaky question because it's darn close to being the best defense. And I'll guarantee you it's the biggest differential in the league.
Yeah. Okay. Last question. Which Broncos loss was the worst this season? You can pick whichever one you want. Please, I promise you will get whatever one you select correct. I'm just curious to see what everyone has to say.
Okay.
Seahawks, that was a bad one. The Raiders, that was a bad one. Thursday night, I called it Thursday Nightmare Football. And Monday Nightmare Football, apparently we need to call it Chargers loss. So I'm curious. People said the Colts, but kind of slightly even there. For both of you, what was the worst?
You know what? I should have clicked the Colts. I'm sorry. I voted wrongly. So take away what I did wrongly. It was the Colts. But they're all miserable. There isn't a good loss in there. There isn't a game where it was a back and forth like the Bills Chiefs. Okay, like if you're a Chiefs fan, you're bummed, right? Like not great, but you wouldn't call that a horrible loss. You lost to a really good team in basically a shootout. There's been nothing like that. Although there are a lot of close games, and that's because the defense is playing so well.
Yeah, I voted Colts, so.
Oh, the Colts game was so bad. All right, coming in third, Derek, appreciate you hanging out with us on trivia for your first time. Nice job making the podium. Number 2. And Jake comes in at number 1. He's got super fast fingers. Da-na-na-na-na. All right, everybody. Oh, runner-up, Colorado Kid and AB. Nice job, everybody. Nice job. We appreciate you, again, hanging out with us. Thanks so much. You guys, well, Monday nightmare football. That's what I think I'm just going to call it if the Broncos are in primetime games because it's not looking good. What changes do you expect to see, if any? Final question of the show. DMac, go.
Melvin Gordon will be released or traded in the next 24 hours. And that's probably it.
Jake?
I'm with DMac, but I'm going to say that Justin Outen gets play calling going into next week.
What?
I'm going to say they do it. I'm going to be bold. I'm going to say something crazy happens. Let's get crazy.
Oh,
that ain't happening.
Gosh.
Probably not.
Could you imagine? I think Broncos country would have a heart attack.
No, and here's why. I would say Clint Kubiak would get that honor because he's actually done it before and Outen hasn't.
Well, there you go. That works too.
You know, that's a possibility. That's a possibility.
Oh, gosh, you guys, I can't believe we're having these conversations. Everybody, thank you so much for hanging out with us on this Tuesday. We hope you all have a wonderful afternoon. Orange and Blue today at 3:30 here on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And we'll see everybody tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m. Bye, everyone.